Terrific. Thanks, everybody. Very cool for me to sort of see that happening from the other side of the world. Some extraordinary businesses. The Australian businesses represented are amazing, and we have strong engagement with them all. The elephant in the room on that picture was it was a lot of guys on a screen, and I just want to call out very deliberately that we know, this is one of the things that the industry is well underrepresented in. We don't have enough diversity in any respect other than men. And for that reason, we're saying to everybody, take it upon yourselves to seek out into the communities those that are otherwise underrepresented. It's not easy sometimes, but it's easy to make excuses about it. So it's constantly going in and saying this is someone who might not be where they should be as far as other people's views at the moment. Just push them into the light, encourage them. I always say to people, talk 12 months ahead of where you think you are now, because there's a natural conservatism, and when people are naturally, they think they have imposter syndrome, they think the way they go, I'm not ready. Push them out of that comfort zone. Ask them to step up and speak. Ask them to volunteer themselves. It's incredibly important, because I can tell you that behind the scenes, it is a perpetual challenge. I ask people and say, I just don't want to do it. Ask them to do it. Demand they do it. It's really, really important. And amongst the communities in general, I distinguish between crypto bros and men in the space. A very, very clear difference. The thing that I love about this space is I do view it as inclusive, because the people I deal with are perpetually trying to uplift others financially, structurally, technologically. So it's just something we need to do more of. We really need to do more of it, but it is not a community that is not aware of that challenge. Kane's going to be in here a little bit later on, so he'll come in. He can follow on from those very, very clear views that he sort of has as well. So we're looking forward to that. Michael Bacina was meant to be with us here on the stage, but he isn't at the moment. Again, the COVID curse for everybody, not with Michael, but the COVID curse has made a few people disappear over the last couple of days. So we're just rolling with it. So Michael will interview a pretty extraordinary founder. For us, Anatoly at Solana has built a business which has gone from nothing to multi-billion dollars in a very short period of time. What we said today was it was going to be very different to yesterday. It's a face melter. This is dense content. We expect to lose people. That's why I was looking forward to it so much. So are they on the line, gents? Are they online? Fellas? Not online. All right. I'll keep filling till they come online. Good opportunity for a product placement. This event is brought to you by lots of sponsors. I mentioned yesterday, FTX is the naming rights sponsor, Crypto.com, Independent Reserve, B2C Markets. One of the ones yesterday out of those four, Independent Reserve, they've been really strong supporters over a long period of time. Adrian Preslonzi has been looking after the ecosystem, has participated as a director of Blockchain Australia as well. Again, these are businesses that put their hands into their own pockets when it comes to supporting us. So we're grateful, and we couldn't do it without them. Update, fellas.
They're all on, but they seem to be briefing each other.
Oh right. Okay, I'm being told that everyone's there, but they're having a chat in the lead up to it. The other part that is going to play out over the course of the day as well, from a subject matter perspective, we've got two channels running, so we're seeing one of the streams here in the room. You've got an option, and hopefully the point here is you've got too many options with respect to content that's going to be running over the course of the day. So feel free to tune in and out as you see fit. Nothing is anything other than A grade, so we've very deliberately set it up in a way that that means that if you don't watch it, you will want to have watched it. And all of that will push into the portal, and off we go. I think we've got fellas on the screen now, so I'll hand over to people building extraordinary things. Michael, I'll leave it to you.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for coming along today. I'm dreadfully sorry I'm not there in person. Isolation is not fun. But for those who know me, my name is Michael Bacina, partner at Piper Alderman's blockchain group. And it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Anatoly Yakovenko. I think I pronounced that right, I hope. And he's the co-founder of the Solana blockchain, which has seen some of the most explosive growth, both price action and in the crypto Twitter and media of probably any recent blockchain projects, and some pretty incredible metrics that we'll discuss today. Anatoly is going to be presenting us with a keynote, and then we'll be having a Q&A session. So please, can everyone join me in welcoming Anatoly?
Hey everyone. Hey folks, this is Anatoly, so awesome to be here. So
You're good to go.
Can I share my screen, or how do I actually put up a presentation?
Okay, hold tight. We'll get our AV team on that.
One second, folks. Okay, maybe I can't share my, can I share my screen somehow or no?
Hi, sorry, we're trying to enable that for you now. Is it possible for you to start without the screen? Thank you.
I can just roll through it without the screen share.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, you guys can't see my awesome presentation, but that's not a big deal. So what is Solana? Solana is a high performance blockchain. It was developed by Solana Labs, which was a company that I founded and basically started in 2018 with a bunch of folks from Qualcomm. And we had the vision of building a high performance blockchain around the idea that blockchains can be scaled with Moore's law, with hardware. And if you do that, you can build something that is both extremely fast, extremely cheap, and energy efficient. And over the last year of this explosive growth, I think we've proven to the world that, you know, that was the correct thesis and that we accomplished what we set out to do. To give you guys an idea of what Solana is in terms of some performance numbers, the block times on Solana are about 400 milliseconds. It's extremely cheap. It's 0.00005 Sol per transaction. So that roughly comes out to, I think, 1/100th of a penny at this at the current prices. But we've also been able to do that while making sure that the network itself remains extremely decentralized. So right now, Solana is running at about 3,000 total nodes. About 1,600 of them are block producers. To give a comparison, there's maybe 5,000 Ethereum 1 nodes. And on a daily basis, maybe 30 of them produce blocks. There's about 30 unique block producers in Ethereum. There's 1,500 on Solana. So the network is quite decentralized in comparison to what you'd expect on modern blockchains. On a daily average, it does about 40 million daily transactions from applications, from external third-party applications running on the network. And these things are Pyth, an Oracle provider, or Serum, which is a central limit order book style market maker. In comparison, Ethereum does about 1 million application transactions, and that's roughly consistent between a lot of EVM chains. I think Binance Smart Chain is maybe the biggest one that does about 2 to 3 million daily. Daily active users on Solana are also getting up there. It's trending at about 200,000 daily active signers. Ethereum's at about 500 individual signers per day. And monthly active signers is at about 2 million monthly active signers, and Ethereum's is about 5. So we're catching up in a lot of ways, or the network is, and the ecosystem is catching up in quite a lot of ways. And to show you the ecosystem, I have these awesome slides showing what we started with last year. There's about 30 logos on there of applications and folks building on Solana. And on the slide after that, imagine about 1,000 different logos you can barely see because we had to shrink them to a point to fit them all in the slide. And a lot of this came from our hackathon. So over the past year, Solana has been running these hackathons. These are open to everybody to join and build. And we've seen these really rapid, almost exponential hockey stick style growth of developers joining the network and starting to build. And we started in March 21. There were 91 teams. In June 21, 326 teams. September was over 500 teams. And this recent hackathon happening right now is also over 500 teams, and the quality of the projects has dramatically increased. And you see that, the real hard evidence that this is working is in the amount of capital has been deployed from venture, big venture management companies like A16Z, like Paradigm, like all the top funds in the space are investing in Solana-based startups. And that number that we've been tracking is crossed 400 million. So in terms of actual aggregate amount of capital that's been raised by Solana startups, it's getting close to cross 400 million. That is, I think, one of the hardest numbers to actually grow, because I think fundamentally the biggest constraint in the space right now isn't capital. It's venture backable founders, people that actually want to quit their jobs at Google and Facebook and go build great companies and raise capital and seek product market fit. And this is largely happening without our help. This is happening at the ecosystem as a whole, and it's happening because we built a really high performance and cheap and energy efficient blockchain. So the kind of startups that we're seeing growing rapidly are across a lot of different verticals. DeFi is at right now it's over 7 billion in TVL. At its peak, it was about twice as that, about 14 billion. Amount of USD based stable coins, so things like USDC and USDT, that's been issued on Solana has crossed 6 billion. And it's been enabled across, I think, all the top tier exchanges: Binance, FTX, FTX US, Huobi, OKX, Bitfinex, the actual transfers of USDT over Solana. And you've seen like recent announcements from things like Coinbase Wallet adding support for the Solana token standard, which in turns means that the tokens that are implemented in Solana are now available across all the exchanges, but also stable coins as well. So that to me is a really exciting development, because I fundamentally think that these networks that we're building are there for transferring things like USDT, USDC between financial institutions. If you look at the Electric Capital active developer report, Solana had this massive breakout year. We went from barely being on the chart to over 1,600 active developers. Again, part of that has been hackathons, but I think those hackathons aren't really what's bringing the developers. It's just a place for people to get together and build applications. What's bringing them is the opportunity to build next generation crypto applications that serve their users and do so in a way that the users are used to. They have Web 2 speeds and costs associated with crypto that have never been possible before. So that developer community is growing because of the technology that's really enabling them. In terms of funds and funds that are active in the space, if you look at our ecosystem of funds, you've seen things like Solana Ventures announce a gaming fund with Lightspeed and FTX, but also like regional ecosystem funds with Hashkey in South Korea, with NGC and Gate, with the exchange, and in Asia, and Huobi and OKX and MXC, like exchange-specific funds in their local ecosystems, but also a fund focused on building Web3 applications around social networking that was launched with Alexis Ohanian, which is there to get developers to start really thinking about what is that next generation of social networks, like what is the true crypto native version of Reddit look like, that we hope to see developers really build and take on those challenges. The Solana Foundation has been extremely busy as well. So I think over the last year, they have deployed over 130 grants. And these are focused on tooling, developer tooling, and validator and application tooling, and as well as incentivizing folks to build stake pools and other hardware deployment, really growing the censorship resistance and decentralization of the network. So that kind of sums it up. And if you want to get in touch with us, best place to do so is at solana.com or follow Solana Twitter. And of course, if you're a developer, if you're not in this hackathon, stay tuned for the next one. Start building right now.
Thanks for that great overview, Anatoly. Really appreciate it. I'm dreadfully sorry we couldn't get the screen sharing on there.
No worries.
Now,
there were beautiful slides, I promise.
It's always the case in technology for the tech industry. Now, something that always interested me when I started reading into Solana, and I appreciate many in the audience might have a good understanding of it, but if we could nerd out for a moment, would you be able to just walk us through the proof of history mechanism that Solana uses as distinct from proof of work or even the proof of stake?
Yeah, so proof of stake and proof of work, these are called Sybil resistance proofs. So this is a way to identify whether the thing you're talking to over the internet, is it a real thing or is it a bot that's just faking that account? And that check is called a Sybil resistance check. Proof of history is is a way to keep track of time. So when somebody, when you look at an image, like a picture, and on it, there's a little bit of exif data that says this image was taken on this or that date. Anybody could actually make up that date. So you have no proof that this specific time was ever existed or that person actually took that photo at that moment in time. They could have really manipulated that number and generated that data. So this is a problem in communication protocols. How do you actually tell time? And if you remember your physics classes, these original communication protocols were wireless protocols. If you remember physics, two radio protocols that transmit at the same time or the same frequency by two different towers, you get interference because radio interferes. So one of the first things that folks have tried is, why don't we give each tower a clock, a trusted clock that is synchronized, and it's guaranteed to be synchronized because the FCC or some other legal body says that it has to be, and therefore no interference is possible. Well, in blockchains, you have similar problems. When you have two block producers, two nodes in the network created a block at the same time, you get noise because now you have a fork in the network and nobody knows what the final state is. So the innovation that proof history does is this idea of proof of time passing, is that it forces the block producer to take turns by time when they produce a block. Instead of using a random process, they actually have to wait a specific amount of delay, a forced delay before they can make a block. And that is very similar to wireless second generation networks that were based on this idea of TDMA, time division multiple access. This is pre-Qualcomm, actually. So in those early 90s, late 80s, folks started building TDMA networks, and that was the foundation of 2G. So you can think of Solana as almost, the 2G version of crypto.
The 2G blockchain. That's great. And that proof of history underpins, and that approach then underpins the throughput that you can achieve on the network.
So performance is one of those really hard problems. You have to do all the things to get it working. And if you look at, go to solana.com, there's, 8 innovations that we talk about. All those make an impact. And proof of history is definitely one of those. So it helps, but it's not the only thing.
That's all right. And I those who follow Solana did note there was some hiccups in January. I just wanted to see if you could speak to that briefly and what were the learnings that came out of that hiccup.
Oh, absolutely. So we've definitely, been growing like crazy. So this is, I think, the first network to really on a daily basis break 40 million transactions per day consistently. And I gave the example that Ethereum is at about 1, Binance Smart Chain has had a peak day, I think, of around 8. but on a daily basis, we're effectively an order of magnitude ahead of them. So we're dealing with the new class of problems, and these are fun engineering problems. And as you look at the development that's happening in the open and in our GitHub and the open source, the main bottleneck that was happening was not at the block producer level at all. It was that during something like a very hot NFT drop or very fast or important markets like a launch on Radium, you saw a very large number of bots that were transmitting the same transaction over and over into the network to try to get ahead of everyone else. And this is the same Sybil resistant problem that occurs at the block level that you use something like proof of work and proof of stake with. And this is now something that our engineers are fixing. Not just our engineers, but folks from like Block Daemon, from Certus One have been involved in building the solution for this. And the solution is effectively using a protocol called Quick, which is a fancy TCP. It's been deployed by Google, I think, for about 10 years now. So that will force bots to establish a connection and therefore not exceed the rate that they're allowed to in that connection.
Excellent. So with that ongoing improvement, how long would you say before you think your users are going to surpass Ethereum? Your user numbers?
I don't know. These are like
crystal ball questions.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we see things like Metaplex is like there's 6 or 7 more times NFTs being minted on Solana per day, more so than Ethereum. And it's about like 1 million a month or something like that. And a lot of the users are coming from there. And it really depends on, I think there's a fundamental bottleneck in crypto where how many actual users do you see in the world that understand self-custody and can sign things? I think this is just like in the 90s, how many people understood what a URL was and a browser was and clicked on those links. And those numbers initially felt like they were growing really slowly, like maybe 5 million in 94. But at some point you will see this hockey stick growth. So to me, when that moment comes, I'm not sure, but it is somewhat moving at human timeframes because it just takes a long time for somebody to understand self-custody, what signing is, set up a wallet, and then actually sign things. The problem is that it's really hard to simplify that process and just eliminate it. If you get rid of signing, if you get rid of custody, you're kind of building the AOL keywords experience of the internet. And that may work in a very kind of constrained sandbox, but not, you look at a browser today, there's still a URL bar. All those efforts effectively failed. So you can't really separate self-custody and signing and crypto from crypto.
That's right. We'll probably see some halfway houses along the way where things are buried in UXs, which brings me to an interesting other point. You mentioned, that the peak and really high level of DeFi apps that are happening on Solana. I've also seen that there's been a range of games, including play-to-earn games, looking to use Solana in part because of that incredible speed. And of course, as you mentioned, the NFTs that are growing. Again, it's possibly crystal balling, but what do you see as the top area or areas of growth on Solana that you think are going to be happening in the next few months from these hackathons and whatnot? You think it's going to be DeFi, NFT, something else, something new?
I think so. I don't know if folks remember or have seen the seed level or early stage presentations. I thought of Solana as blockchain at NASDAQ speed. And, I first thought that something like Serum will eventually run all of equities in the world. And you've seen Serum hit over 800 million daily volume, which is blowing my mind that that's possible. But I'm starting to realize that everything that's built on crypto, like things like NFT, like all these other experiences, while NFTs are not marketed as DeFi, or they're not DeFi products per se, they are DeFi because this is a financial thing that has things like creator splits and royalties, and they're now being used in DAOs to coordinate capital. And none of those things are very predictable. There's no way a year ago I could have told you that the Monkey MBS NFT set is going to be trading at $2 million per monkey, and they're going to be coordinating millions of dollars worth of capital through on-chain governance. So I I think what we're going to see are things like NFTs and things that are very much more consumer and almost like more entertainment focused, but have these DeFi elements in them. And this is where I think these new business models and new applications can be developed. And this is the long kind of slow path of disintermediating things like the ad exchange market. Doesn't mean that you're going to take something like Google's ad exchange and run it on Solana. It means that you can build a totally new business model for the web that doesn't depend on ads. And that thing is going to get more users than, what you'd expect at a Web2 application that runs on ads.
Absolutely. And we've seen that growth has been very much sort of, if you might call it, at the retail level and at the building level. Are you seeing much interest from enterprise who want to come into a blockchain with this level of speed and this level of environmental cred?
Yeah, so what I consider enterprises are folks like Circle or like Tether. They're stablecoin issuers, Paxos, folks like that. Those financial institutions and fintechs and Fortune 500 fintechs that have been watching the space. This is to them a technology that can enable something like Circle, right? Something like a Tether, where they can issue their own stablecoin that's regulatory compliant and then build their own business applications on top. And we've seen a ton of interest in that sphere. I think folks now understand that this is a new way to transact. This is a new way to spend money. When we launched Solana Pay, we saw a lot of merchants immediately get that when I now receive a transfer on the web through something like Solana Pay, it's equivalent to a cash transaction, that it settles immediately. And just like I would get cash out of a register in my store. And this is not something that you normally see out of a digital payment that you'd use a normal credit card transfer. So the liabilities shifted, the fees are much lower, and that's been really eye-opening for a lot of merchants.
Absolutely, a very big change from the chargeback world, or saying we can't use Bitcoin because we don't want to wait 10 minutes while the coffee gets cold or someone's paying for it. So let's talk about what's coming up for Solana in sort of this next year. What main things are exciting you about both the project and other things?
Definitely based on the kind of developer interest we've seen, gaming is one of those things. I think games take much longer to develop, but there's been such an influx of game developers that I'm excited to see them start shipping those games and having those things go live and see them iterate on what is actually exciting to gamers about NFTs and having game economies be on chain and like all those experiments that I've always dreamed of, as a kid playing things like EverQuest, like Ultima Online, now like actually get to see them play out in the real world.
That's very cool. Now, putting Solana aside for a moment, can you tell me what is a non-Solana project that super excites you or that you've seen recently, or something that you follow that you think is fantastic?
Non-Solana project. Shoot. I don't know. I guess one of the things that I saw that was really kind of remarkable is how quickly folks both in the Ethereum and the Solana community were able to spin up decentralized organizations to raise money to help folks in Ukraine, refugees and things like that. It literally happened in 48 hours. Engineers went from an idea to having both the nuts and bolts of the smart contracts up and running to handle this, and then being able to connect them directly to people that needed those funds. And I honestly don't think this has happened before in any other kind of crisis, where you always had like an intermediary that is an NGO that has to take money, then figure out how to deploy it, and all those hoops add both fees and delay in terms of actually getting capital to people that need it. And that's really exciting to me. I honestly believe that the key part, like the really, really interesting part of all of everything that we're building, just like with the internet, when you had this idea that, oh my God, everybody can be a publisher, because now we have this interconnected web. If we have everybody that can actually sign and understands what cryptography is and what a wallet is, and there's 100 million folks, I believe that they can all coordinate and decide to fix climate change like that. It's just a matter of setting up the DAO, and then 400 milliseconds before the money's deployed to go fix things. It's like once we get to that critical mass of people with cryptography, how fast people can move to deploy capital and directly to where it's needed is going to be dramatically change the world.
I agree with you. I think that kind of real-time data on real-time decision-making is one of the things that really got me first excited about blockchain systems, and certainly something that I try to express to government and others who want to see what's happening and get some real-time information on data going through economies and things. You can do much better decisions if you know the information, and that's a really, really good example for Ukraine. That situation over there is not good at all, and it's come up in quite a few of our talks, and that's a really fantastic example. Now, I did have one final, also non-Solana related question. In my research for a few interviews you've done previously, you've discussed underwater hockey, which I did want to take a moment because I just wanted to understand what was underwater hockey and how you got into it, because it seems like a really cool sport.
So Australia has one of the best teams in the world in underwater hockey, and the US folks have always gotten our butts kicked whenever we played them. But this was a sport that I discovered in college, and for whatever reason, my friends, some of the folks that helped co-found Solana and worked with me at Qualcomm, and we're Ironman athletes together. We all played this game, underwater hockey. So when we lived in Solana Beach, we would wake up, surf, bike to work, bike home, surf again, then go play underwater hockey. And it's, you Google it, you wear fins and snorkel, hold your breath, and you have a stick about this big and a puck that's on the bottom, and it's a blast.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear that we have such an excellent team. And then follow on, if Solana and Ethereum were sports, what sport would they be and why?
Sports? What is Ethereum? I would say, I don't know. Ethereum is, I don't know. Ethereum is, soccer maybe? Solana's basketball.
Please I think that's a great set of metaphors. Look,
both are great. Both are awesome and fun to watch. So,
well, I really, really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through. I think, as you mentioned, anyone who wants to find out more about Solana, there's a lot of material online. Anatoly is always posting on crypto Twitter with really, really interesting insights. And Solana is definitely going to be a project to watch and see what kind of amazing things are going to be happening, because this year really feels like so many things have been taking off quite tremendously. So if you would all join me in thanking Anatoly very much for taking time out of his busy schedule to present to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wish I was in Australia surfing.